Ashley Paxton, also known as Squid Kid 1111, was a black cosplayer. And she died by suicide on October the 27th of 2025. And she was 20 years old. For those of y'all who do not know, word on the street was she died by suicide because she was relentlessly bullied via anti-black racism. We need to get all into this topic, and more so the racism that is experienced by black cosplayers and blerds generally speaking. I'm your host, Kolas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's get into it. When I first started the Kolas brand, my main mission was to make the media a better place for black people. And I took my analyses from the perspective of looking at nerdy content as a blerd myself. And one of the things that I realized through this journey was that I was more of a Blerd Critic than I was a Blerd Appreciator. And what I mean by that is I was more likely to create analyses on the issues and problems that existed in the media that we typically see as blerds versus trying to talk about my favorite things that were within that. Now, there are certain videos where I do talk about things that I enjoy myself. And if you have been in conversation with me, I will also talk about those things. But typically, my whole point is to analyze what I see from the media that I'm viewing. So I would even backtrack a bit and say, I lean more so into the criticism realm, but I'm typically more of a blerd media analyst. And I think for me, what this stems from is the idea that I've always been the type to want to stand up for things that just weren't right. I seldom am a it is what it is type of person, because when things just don't sit right with me, I feel that it's partially my duty to try to correct that, try to make a positive change, or try to make a positive outcome. I'm not the type to just sit around and let something happen and then me feel good about it, or just brush it to the side and then just feel good in my spirit. I'm the type of person who likes to do things that make things that I care about a better place than how it was before I put my own stamp into it. So creating the Kolas brand was important because I saw that there was a lot of racism that was within the blerd community as a whole. And part of my mission was to not just entertain people, but to also educate and empower them when it comes to looking at what is going on in the media landscape, especially as it applies to black nerds. Now, before I go deeper into this topic, I just want to say that the way that I plan to speak about Ashley and also everything around the racism that black cosplayers experience at the hands of these racists in the dominant society, I just want to say that I'm going to attempt to handle this conversation with as much care and as much sensitivity as I possibly can, while still going through the key things that people need to understand and can learn from what happened to Ashley. So y'all been listening to me for a while. I mean, I've been doing this YouTube thing now for probably a couple years and really got deep into it maybe within the last year. But one of the things you probably know about me just from listening to me is that I have a pretty proper dialect, or one would call it proper, I guess. And I'm a blerd. I'm proud of being a black nerd. Like, that's nothing that I have any type of shame about. And I shouldn't, right? And realistically, in 2025, it's something that's pretty popularized. But it wasn't always like that. Growing up for me, which I grew up in the 90s and also the early 2000s, I'm a millennial if you can't tell by now, I noticed that it was something that wasn't very popular at that time. It wasn't something that was totally accepted. No matter what y'all say, no matter what way you try to rationalize it, no matter what way you didn't experience it, I don't really give a shit. It was something that just simply was not accepted as a millennial growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. You had certain groups of people who were into the whole blerd thing, but not a whole lot. You know, or you would have people who would be into snippets of it, but not a whole lot. With that being said, I had two whammies on me. You know, I have the proper dialect, and then I also was a blerd. So when people talk about this whole idea of being bullied and whatnot, I believe it to be true. Now, I will say from my experience, most of my bullying, contrary to what a lot of people say, wasn't even really by the black community per se. You know, there'd be a lot of people who would make little snide comments and stuff like that. And, you know, people were pretty relentless in elementary school. But once I got to high school, I wasn't really talked about like that by the black kids, at least. As a matter of fact, I found people who I was cool with and who I enjoyed hanging around and whatnot. And I kind of was cool with almost everybody, you know, to a certain extent when I was in high school. Like different groups of people is what I mean. But the one thing that I noticed is that the one group of people that would consistently have shit to say about me, or I guess as some people would say, try to bully me, were a lot of these racist white supremacists. A lot of them were the ones who would typically have something to say about who I was, the way that I spoke, the way that I behaved, and everything else. And I say all that to say, without even doing any type of research and looking into this topic at all, it is 100% believable from my perspective that black cosplayers would experience anti-black racism because of these racist, mayonnaise-eating white supremacists. It's totally believable. With that being said, I will tell you from my own experience that most of the criticisms, the comments, and the bullying that I would experience was at the hands of a bunch of racist white kids. And no, I don't want to hear that they would just kids. I don't want to hear that shit. Because the reality is that these little racist bastards grow up to be racist adults that oppress black people, create laws, and also make their lives miserable when they're on the job. And much, much more, because we haven't even talked about genocide, right? I say all that to say that from my experience, I saw that there were a lot of racist bullies, even with me growing up, being in high school and being around them. A lot of them couldn't fathom the idea that a black person was not the stereotype, the racist stereotype at that they pictured them all to be. Because if you didn't fit into this stereotype of, you know, talking in a certain way, in a certain dialect, and being desiring to be within certain interests. And, you know, if you were a black nerd, especially, they would assume that you weren't a real black person. And growing up, I would get these racist white kids who would say all types of crazy ass shit to me and call me racial names, racial slurs, and things like that related to the fact that they believed that I wasn't a real black person. You know, some of them would say things like I was white on the inside, black on the outside, and they would say all types of stuff, right? All types of bullshit. And so I say all that to say that it's totally believable that they would be this way, because I know how they were growing up and being in high school, and me, again, not fitting into that racist stereotype that they created of black people, and them having a bunch of comments. Again, I want to make it clear. I'm not saying that I never got criticized by other black people, because I did at times. And it wasn't really a lot when I was in high school per se. But the greatest majority and the worst of the criticism, hatred, and mistreatment that I got was at the hands of some racist bitch ass white kids. I'm just going to be honest with you. But see, the difference between myself and Ashley, and again, this is no disrespect to her or her family or anybody else, was that I didn't really give a fuck if these people didn't like me. I'd like me for who I am. You know, I'm not going to talk any differently because, you know, it makes people feel comfortable or it would make me more accepted. I wasn't trying to do that. I wasn't trying to validate a racist stereotype. And even when it came to black society, I wasn't trying to, quote unquote, fit in, you know, by speaking and acting a way that just wasn't me. You know, the people who fucked with me did, and the people who didn't just simply didn't. And let's be clear, although you hear me speak a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, and have certain interests, I will roast the fuck out of you. But nonetheless, regardless of all that, Ashley herself was bullied. And there were a lot of different comments that were being alleged by the black cosplayer community, which again, I strongly believe to be true. A lot of them were saying that she, you know, received a lot of hateful comments. You know, she was harassed, she was mocked. There were these racists online that were saying that her skin tone ruined the character. And she also experienced watching other people validate and like the things that were being said. Specifically, I saw that there was some sources out there that were saying that photographers and other people who were within the community were liking the posts that were racist and that were kind of targeted towards her. You know, a lot of them were also kind of buddying up and, you know, kind of getting with and caping for these, again, mayonnaise eating, headlight scratching white supremacists who had things to say about Ashley. But let's just take a moment and just look at her profile and what she's done, and also the comments that were directed at her and why they are indeed racist and they are indeed stupid as hell. Because there's a whole system involved with this. So I had an opportunity to kind of go through Ashley's profile, and I saw her cosplay work, and she does a great job with creating these different costumes. I can tell she really gets into character. She really puts a lot of time and effort into what she's done. And I can just, again, tell that this is something that she was very passionate about and loved doing. And I also noticed that she would cosplay a lot of anime characters. In particular, one of the characters that I saw her portray, and I don't want to get this name incorrect because I'm not really an anime type of dude myself. I'm more into Sonic and Pokemon and stuff like that. But the name of this character was Ukinami Yazuha. I think that's how you say it, Yazuha. And this is an anime character, and this character is essentially Japanese. So let's just kind of put two and two together here. With this character being Japanese, and you have these racist white nerds who are going on and bitching about the fact that she's cosplaying, you have to think this is obviously racist because she's not even cosplaying white characters for real. She's cosplaying Asian characters. So these bitch-made mayonnaise-eating little bastards are bullying her based off of her portraying a character that's not even white. That means that they hate her off the simple fact that it's a black person cosplaying. Not the fact that they're cosplaying somebody white, but the fact that they're existing and just cosplaying. That's how you know that's some racist ass shit. And the reality is a lot of them do that because they believe that anime is theirs as well too. Because, you know, we got to kind of look at the Japanese and give them a little smoke as well too when it comes to this. But there is this idolization of white culture and demonization of black culture that goes on in a lot of Asian cultures. Let's just be real. With that being said, they probably gave them the impression that it was cool for them to pull rank on something that they created, because anime is an Asian thing. Yet you have these suspected white supremacists who believe that it is their creation. So part of that is them having delusions of grandeur to the point where they believe that this is their thing. So when they look at a black person cosplaying an Asian character, they're believing that it's that black person cosplaying one of them. And to back up that claim, if you look at a lot of these anime characters, they do have somewhat of a whitewashed look. I mean, if you look at characters like Goku and Vegeta and characters like Light Yagami and then a lot of those Yu-Gi-Oh characters, a lot of white characters or white appearing characters are on these shows, yet they're in Japanese and I guess in this case Asian like backgrounds, worlds, and also have Asian based names in a lot of cases. And I want to be clear about something as well too. This is a tragedy. Like what happened to Ashley is absolutely a tragedy and there's no question about it. But I think what also needs to be discussed is that on an even bigger scale, this is happening to many other black cosplayers as well too. Now I'm saying that to say that Ashley is not an isolated incident. There are other incidents of other black cosplayers who are being harassed by these useless mayonnaise eating white supremacists. And the reason why I know is because of two different things. Number one, I was listening to Brother Torian Rain. Shout out to him for covering this topic before I did. Also shout out to Professor Black Truth because I believe he covered this as well too. But Torian Rain went into how there were certain instances where there were other cosplayers who were experiencing the same thing. And he actually did research, and he talked about this dude named Jacob Martin who was harassing another black cosplayer, and he had a whole bunch of shit to say. And he was kind of doing the whole being a thing without being called a thing where he was like, you know, I agree with, you know, these people, these white nerds who are going around and saying that a black person shouldn't be cosplaying somebody who's not black, but I'm not racist. He kind of did one of them. But regardless, the focus shouldn't even just be on him or just one or two people. I did my own research. This is point number 2. And I actually went even further into the comment that Tori and Rain was talking about, and the cosplayer who was getting harassed. Because there was another cosplayer out there, and she was also a dark-skinned black woman, and she was cosplaying a Japanese character, like an anime character, and the character was an elf. And I saw all types of comments in there talking about how, you know, the elves are not black, elves are not this color, they're not that color. And then some of them were going as far as to calling her a hard ER and all types of stuff. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is the type of shit that these male supremacists do. They see a black person minding their own fucking business, and then they want to get all up in their mix and say hateful shit about them for no fucking reason. And then what these low-life incel bastards will do is they'll start circle jerking each other, because their whole thing is, well, this is a system thing. This is a team thing. And that's why I said white supremacy is a group effort and it's a team effort, because anytime those same racists will go on and they'll say negative things and harass black people because they're minding their own business, they'll start liking those comments, and then they'll start feeding off of it, and they'll say racist things as well too, because one person said it, it seemed to have been made acceptable for a bunch of, you know, suspected white supremacists to sit there and just bandwagon. And again, it's a bunch of losers who will have a weird ass picture of some type of anime character or some type of cartoon character or some shit that they're hiding behind. But regardless, my point is that a lot of them will actually circle jerk each other, because their thing is, well, you know, they made it clear that it's cool for them to spew racist hatred, so I can do it too. And if too many of us do it, I mean, they can't say any stuff to all of us. At a certain point, it's going to turn from it being a conversation about, you know, we're being racist, to them making the argument that we just have a difference in opinion. We just disagree. At some point, it's going to turn into the argument of we're being racist to, this is all of us who just don't like the portrayal. We have the right to not like it. And as you can see, other people are doing it, so it's somewhat justified. So they're trying to pull that type of thing. But I want to be clear. Racism versus being an anti-racist is not a difference in opinion. It's not. I want to be clear about that. So for all of you bitch ass, mayonnaise eating, head lice having, meth using white supremacists who like to use that argument, if you all are sitting around saying something to that effect, you need to understand that there is no difference in opinion. You just like systemic oppression against black people for fucking existing, because you're inferior about your own life, your own race, and your own goddamn well-being. And if you're really that fucking jealous of a black cosplayer doing their thing, dressing up as an anime character because they have an appreciation for the art, then maybe you should try to do a better job of cosplaying than them. Because let's be real, white people can go around and they can cosplay any type of character they want and get no criticism. But I got an idea for y'all. For those of you all who are going around here bitching about this type of thing, why don't you go and cosplay a damn dog? Because you definitely have the wet dog smell to go along with it. And for those of y'all who are going around here saying, all she had to do was take a break. All she had to do was log off the internet and maybe not do it again since she's not cut out for it, dude. If you're going around saying that shit, Miss me. Miss me with that soft victim blame bullshit where you try to pretend like you're a good, balanced person and you ain't shit, and this world would probably be a better place without you in it. Black people shouldn't have to give up things that they enjoy just because there's a presence of racism in what they enjoy. However, what we do need to do is educate our black nerd, blerd, whatever you want to call it, community on how to behave when you're in these types of situations. Again, I'm going to try to address the situation with care. To be clear, I have no idea what else Ashley could have been going through. But what I do sense are some patterns of things that other cosplayers can avoid so it doesn't get to the point where you're feeling so miserable about the harassment and the hate and the things that you get that you take your own life. Because to be honest, that is what the white supremacists want you to do. They want you to take yourself about this world. But I think that if some of us had a better understanding of the way things work and operate, then this wouldn't be as much of a problem as it is today. Now, one of the reasons why you're probably going to want to get my book, the Pro-Black Blerd series, Exposing Anti-Black Media Tropes the Blerd Way, is because I break down tropes from every type of standpoint. I start at the base of where these problems started. I don't just give you definitions and tell you how these things show up. I tell you who causes them, who creates them, who perpetuates them, and everything in between. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because one of the things that you all need to understand is that it's important for us to look at the entire scope of everything related to the blerd community. So with my book, I don't just look at the tropes alone. I look at who are the perpetuators of the tropes. What is the behavior of the fans? What are the behaviors of those who consume it? So I look at all facets of it. And what we need to do as a blerd community is look at all facets of the content that we enjoy. The thing about a lot of blerds and bleaks is that we have the tendency to enjoy the content we enjoy for the purpose of escapism. It's a way to not deal with things in the real world, but to more so look at fantasy or fantasy related things and to delve into them to the point where you're able to not focus on or think about what's actually happening in the real world, such as racism. But the problem with this is that it's inescapable. Racism is all throughout blerd media and blerd culture. And as a result, you have racist fans and racist creators. So you have to look at the entire picture. And I say all this to say that there's a good chance that if Ashley took herself out, one of the reasons why is because she had faith that she would have a community, and part of her community would be some of these racist fans who she didn't think were necessarily going to be so hateful and hurtful towards her. And the reason why I bring that up is because you have to understand that as a blerd, this racist white nerddom is going to rear its ugly head. So anytime that you put out something, you create something, or you excel in some type of role that's related to nerd content, here are going to come these racist white nerds who are going to bitch and moan and hoe and groan and all this other shit because you just exist in that space. And it's important for us to understand the landscape inside and out. You have racist creators. And that's why I often say that there's a both sides agenda that's going on. This is something that Neely Fuller Jr. has talked about as well too, but I'm also reinforcing it from the media standpoint. You have these creators who oftentimes will portray black people or black faces, but they may do a race swap, or they may kind of put in one character and they may tokenize the hell out of that character. And then you'll have a bunch of racist white nerds like the ones that were bitching about this woman cosplaying some anime characters. And then they'll both come at this black person from different ends. But the black person who is in that role or in that situation, or maybe on the outside, will only see the hatred that comes from the racist white nerds who have venomous comments. but there's also this creator who is trying to profit off of the image of black people and black bodies. So I say all that to say that there are racists that are all over the board. Once you have an understanding of that, you will know that you don't have friends. The only people who actually do support you, care about you as a group, because I don't want the all police to come in here and start bitching about individual people who don't fall into what I'm saying. But as a group, this is why you have to be in community with other black nerds, blerds, whatever you want to call them, who are on code and have an understanding that we are at war, even in a space where all we're trying to do is relax and have fun. And that's why it's also paramount for us to create our own spaces. And what I mean by that is spaces where you have trusted individuals who can, create different types of content and different types of platforms where you're able to flourish. But while doing that, they also know that there's a set of rules to go with it that they have to follow. That being that you don't let people who hate you into your square, into your circle, whatever you want, whatever shape you want to call it. You don't let people in who have the propensity to be racist, who have the propensity to historically as a group do negative things to black people. And again, I do not want the all police coming in here bitching and pointing out their white friend or non-black friend who doesn't fall into that category. As a group, we need to work with like-minded, on-code black people in the blurred space who are going to get things popping and create a safer space for you to be able to flourish and do the things that you love and enjoy. I also want to be clear. There's nothing wrong with doing something such as enjoying cosplay, enjoying anime, or enjoying blerd culture at all. But you need to be well educated on the landscape before you dive deep into these things. You can't just enjoy them and then expect that, you're going to have some fans, some haters, and then not have them. There are agendas that are attached to everything that you do in these spaces. And part of being well equipped while within these spaces is to understand the way that things work when it comes to group dynamics. And these racist white nerds are working fully against black people no matter what they do, even if it's completely harmless, which cosplaying 100% is. For those of you all who are listening to me who are trying to call me a hypocrite because in the past I said that I prefer whoever is within that culture to play that role within black society, that's not the same fucking thing if you're trying to go back to that shit. It's not the same thing because there's agendas tied to why they do that with black people, why they have a lot of black people who are British or non-FBA playing a lot of FBA roles. There's a whole agenda to it. There's nothing but racism that's attached to a white person bitching about a black person cosplaying a character, even when that character is not even fucking white. The last thing that I'll say is this. For those of you all who are watching this, I will encourage you to also go and show Ashley's family some support and some love as well too. There's actually a link on her channel as well too where you can donate because of what happened and her basically taking her own life and whatnot. It is a tragedy, like I said, and this is something that we need to take very seriously going forward, and we need to make sure that we protect other black nerds so they're able to do their thing and not also feel like they're alone in trying to do the things that they love while also having to combat the racist media that's against them, whether they know it or whether they don't. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future, so make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you like this video, subscribed, shared, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And then when you're finished, I love it if you left me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you had to say about this topic. Other than that, I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.